He sat across the long oak table, pen in hand, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips as if he had already won. The papers between them weren't just words on legal sheets, they carried years of love, broken promises, and quiet sacrifices. She sat on the other side, steady but quiet, her fingers clasped together as if holding herself from shaking. He leaned back, mocking her with a laugh. Signing the divorce documents. As though the ending of their marriage was a game to him. It wasn't the first time he had belittled her. But something about this moment felt heavier. Like the calm before a storm, friends and family whispered that she should have expected it. He'd always treated her heart like a burden instead of a gift. Yet, what he didn't know was that this courtroom wasn't just about an ending. It was also about a beginning he could never have imagined. The judge, usually distant and formal, seemed unusually patient as he glanced over the papers. The room grew still, every shuffle and cough fading into silence. She didn't flinch, though her eyes carried the weight of years of standing strong. Years of being overlooked, years of waiting for the moment where truth would finally rise above the noise. What made this divorce hearing different was the envelope resting quietly in the judge's hand. It wasn't just any legal document. It was her father's will, sealed and untouched until this very day. No one, not even she, knew what was written inside. And as the mocking laughter of her husband echoed through the room, the judge slowly cleared his throat. Something in his voice changed, measured, deliberate, almost heavy with the weight of revelation. The man stopped mid-laugh, his grin fading as he noticed the judge wasn't looking at him with the same detached formality anymore. Instead, the judge's eyes lingered on the woman, on her quiet strength, on the truth that was about to unfold. The air in the courtroom grew tight, like everyone was holding their breath at once, because the moment that envelope opened, nothing, absolutely nothing, would stay the same. And for the man who mocked her, the reality written in her father's will would be the last thing he ever expected. The silence in the courtroom, pressed down like a weight, every second stretching longer than the last. She sat still, but her thoughts ran back through years that had brought her to this moment. He had once been the man she believed in, the man she trusted with her dreams. But over time, his charm had turned into sharp words, his love into cold distance. Signing those divorce papers was his final act of mockery, as if breaking vows and breaking her spirit was just another victory for him. What he didn't realize was that the very past he dismissed so easily was about to speak louder than anything he had to say. Her father had been a quiet man, respected by his community, a man who built his name on hard work and unshakable principles. When he passed, she felt as though a pillar of her life had been taken away. Still, she carried his lessons within her lessons of patience, strength, and dignity, even when the world tried to break her down. That envelope the judge held was her father's voice reaching forward through time. And deep inside, she knew it carried something important. But what? She had never asked about money, never asked about land, never cared for anything except the memory of his wisdom. Her soon-to-be ex-husband, on the other hand, shifted uneasily now. His arrogance began to flicker the longer the judge stayed silent. He had built his life on control, on making her feel small, and suddenly the power in the room was slipping away. Everyone could sense it. The air changed, whispers rising among those seated in the back, waiting for what was coming next. The truth sealed inside her father's will wasn't just words on paper. It was a secret, a turning point, something that would decide the course of her life and his. And as the judge prepared to read it aloud, the woman knew that everything she thought she had lost might only be the beginning. The judge's hand lingered on the sealed envelope, his eyes scanning the room as if measuring every reaction before he spoke. She could feel her heart thudding in her chest, not out of fear, but from the weight of the unknown. Her father had always been deliberate, never leaving things unfinished, never speaking without purpose. Whatever was written in that will had been planned carefully, and now, at this exact moment, it was about to come alive. Her ex-husband tried to mask his unease by leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, but his eyes betrayed him. He was calculating the way he always did, trying to guess what was coming. For years, he had brushed off her family, mocking her roots, mocking her strength, never realizing that the very foundation he ridiculed might be stronger than all the wealth and pride he clung to. His laugh earlier had been loud, but now silence seemed to choke him. Memories rushed back to her as she sat waiting. She remembered her father's voice telling her as a little girl, "One day, people will see who you really are. You don't need to force it, just wait." At the time, she hadn't understood, but now those words echoed like a prophecy. She never asked him about money or inheritance. She had lived her life believing she would walk her own path without expecting anything in return. But her father had known her struggles, had seen the way she carried herself with quiet dignity through storms. No one else noticed. The judge's voice finally broke the stillness. He began to open the envelope slowly, carefully, as though the paper itself carried a heartbeat. Everyone leaned forward, just slightly. Her ex-husband's smirk was gone, replaced with a nervous tension he couldn't hide. Whatever her father had left behind wasn't just property or wealth. It was something deeper, something that had been waiting for this very moment to be revealed. And as the seal broke, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The paper slid free from its envelope, the sound sharp against the still air. The judge unfolded it with slow, deliberate hands, his eyes narrowing as he began to read silently first, as if making sure he understood every word before speaking them aloud. The weight in the room grew heavier, pressing against every person seated inside. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, her face calm, though her heart raced faster with each second of silence. Her ex-husband shifted again, unable to hide his impatience. He had walked into the courtroom confident, certain that today was his final chance to humiliate her, to walk away as the victor. But now the spotlight was no longer on him. It was on her and on the legacy of the man she called father. He cleared his throat and tried to laugh again, but the sound came out hollow, breaking in the thick tension that wrapped itself around the room. The judge's eyes flicked up briefly, landing on her with an expression she couldn't quite read, part surprise, part gravity, almost as if the words he was about to speak would change more than just her future. The people in the back row leaned forward, some whispering, others wide-eyed. It felt less like a courtroom and more like a stage where truth was about to be revealed in front of everyone. She thought about all the nights she spent in silence, praying for strength, choosing patience instead of bitterness, holding on when letting go would have been easier. Maybe this moment was her father's way of showing her that all of that endurance had not been in vain. The judge finally cleared his throat, the rustle of the paper echoing like thunder in the quiet. Every eye turned toward him, every breath caught mid-air. Her ex-husband gripped the table edge, his mocking smile completely gone now. And then, in that electric pause before the words left the judge's mouth, it became clear whatever was written in her father's will was not just about inheritance. It was about justice. And the truth waiting to be spoken would turn everything upside down. The judge's lips parted. But before he could speak, another sound cut through the silence, a voice from the back of the courtroom. Heads turned as a tall man in a dark suit stepped forward, holding a smaller envelope in his hand. His presence carried weight, as though he had been waiting for this exact moment. The judge paused, recognizing him instantly, and the tension in the room deepened. The man introduced himself as the executor of a second document left behind by her father, one that was meant to be revealed only if the first will was challenged. A murmur swept across the courtroom. Her ex-husband's eyes widened, the confidence draining from his face. He had expected a routine hearing, a moment to sneer at her misfortune. But suddenly the ground beneath him felt unstable. She sat frozen, her breath caught in her chest. Her father had never spoken of a second will. Why would he keep such a secret? The answer, she realized, was simple. Her father always believed in timing. He must have known there would be a day when the truth would need to strike like lightning. Sharp and undeniable. The judge took the second envelope with measured hands, glancing between the woman and her ex-husband. The air grew tighter, every person leaning forward as though afraid to blink. The first will had already carried enough weight to shift the balance of power, but the second? The second meant her father had anticipated conflict. Maybe even betrayal. Her ex-husband tried to interrupt, his voice cracking as he demanded to know why this new evidence was appearing now. But no one listened. The judge silenced him with a single stern asterisk. If you enjoyed this story and want more intense thrillers and suspenseful adventures, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with friends who love a good mystery. Your support helps me bring you more stories just like this one.